Well everyone, it may have seemed like this journey had just started to you, but remember this, I've been walking around in circles for hours, so you know what, let's just get this over with. So, as you might have expected, the final dungeon in Soul of Rebirth is just Pandemonium mirrored, and with a new tile set. Now granted, it is a pretty nice looking tile set, and of course the music returning is also a nice touch, but yeah, it's just... they just reused assets for the most part. Well, no, it's not really assets necessarily. There was some work involved. They had to recolor the imp enemies right here, so they did something. They used the fill command, I'll give them that. But yes, enemies in here, as I said before, can be either easy or tough in this dungeon. Mini Satanas are sort of in between. I mean, they've got some pretty good spells. See, I forget what they have going for them. Of course, we've already seen Drain and Stun, I believe. Oh, they also have Confuse, Fire, Blizzard, Curse, Death, and Haste. Now, that is a pretty good list of spells, but they're all only level 6 and 7, I believe, so... they do have a good range, but they're not too powerful overall, thankfully, so... you shouldn't have too much of a tough time against them, provided you're not too weak. They're not the weakest enemies in the dungeon, again, but they can do a bit of damage if you haven't trained a bit. Other than that, though, their stats aren't too good, so taking them down shouldn't be too difficult. There are weaker enemies. I'm surprised we didn't run into said weaker enemies first, but anyway, regardless. Really, Joseph, I didn't know you disliked Scott so much. So the setup here is basically the same as, well, the starting setup, really. I mean, basically Minwu is the white mage, Scott's the all-around character, Joseph and Rickard are both here for damage, so not much of a difference here. I mean, not much of a point in making a difference, really. Their stats aren't set in stone, but they sort of guide you into playing one way overall, so yeah, they're probably going to be similar no matter what. Wow, we got some pretty good upgrades there. We also got the Toad Tome, which is pretty good, but yeah, I don't really need it that much, because I don't use one-hit kills too often. Though if you do, Toad is pretty much the best one, so there's that. So, this is pretty much the only thing they added, other than, well, actually most of the upgrades to the game itself came in the PS1 version, though the Game Boy Advance version pretty much fixed that version of the game, so it balances, really. So yeah, they did add this for the Dawn of Souls version, and again, it's one of the better optional dungeons that they added for the ports in the series. I mean, it's better than Final Fantasy IV. It's definitely better than Final Fantasy I. I mean, jeez, Whisperwind Cove. I don't want to do that ever again. But yeah, it's still kind of lazy overall. But there is one big reason that I like this scenario overall, other than just the fact that, you know, you get these characters that didn't really get as much screen time in the main game, including Scott. Scott's honestly one of my favorite characters in the game. I mean, yeah, he's not in the game story-wise that much, but design-wise I really like him. He looks pretty cool, and of course he's an all-around character, so I like using him, so all in all, probably one of my favorite characters in this game. And of course I also like Rickard, and honestly all these characters are pretty good overall, so nothing really to complain about there. Now, the PSP version is a bit different. Oh, first we got Chimera Brains. They work pretty much as the previous Chimera did. Highest level of Blaze, absorb 3 elements, so don't fight them with magic unless, you know, you want to use Flare, Holy, or Ultima. I don't think they have Bad Breath anymore, so you don't have to worry about that, but yeah. The PSP version did actually add an optional dungeon called the Arcane Labyrinth, and it's kinda complex. One neat thing that it does do, while I'm not the biggest fan of it, is the fact that it actually makes up a use for all those terms we learned. Remember all those random terms like palimecia and stuff that were basically just broken bridges, except in conversation form. But the Arcane Labyrinth actually forms depending on what characters you have and what words you actually use. It's kind of similar to Final Fantasy I's optional dungeon. Oh shit, Gold Golem. Brief break about talking about that stuff. Gold Golems, very, 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 very tough. Incredibly tough. Incredibly, holy crap, yeah. Okay, so, Blood Sword, gonna save my life here. I believe they're weak to lightning and they resist everything else, so, if Scott were alive, he should probably use lightning attacks. I think they also have good magic defense, though. Thankfully, I only ran into one. I think you can run into two at a time, and holy crap, that is not good when that happens. But yeah, I think that's just about it for Gold Golems. You saw them punch Scott in the face, so I think it's obvious that they're pretty tough, and I don't think they're really weak to Curse either. Thankfully, they didn't kill Joseph, though. Speaking of Joseph, he's not doing that well. I think Rickard is pretty much going to be my saving grace here, but anyway, yeah, as I was saying, depending on what characters you have, random floors will be chosen, and depending on what floors you can get, it actually alters the treasures and encounter rates you get there, which is pretty neat, and in order to complete the dungeon, there's a boss called, Lamia Matriarch really isn't that tough because all it really knows how to do is Charm. I don't think it actually has Blink, so it's actually kind of weaker than the other Lamia enemies. But yes, the boss at the end of Arcane Labyrinth is Frakios, something like that. It's got a weird name, but basically every time you fight it, once you know more and more terms, once you use more terms, it actually gets more powerful. It starts really, really weak, and you can take it down relatively easily. But by the end of the game, it resists everything. It knows level 16 spells. It can inflict death with its attack. And the thing is, you do kind of need to go through the Arcane Labyrinth multiple times, unfortunately, like Final Fantasy I's optional dungeons, because Malboro Menace. Okay, back to enemies for a sec. Malboro Menaces! A lot like Malboro enemies from the other games, in that they inflict a lot of status effects, though I don't seem to be doing too badly against them. Oh, never mind. Spoke too soon. Joseph's almost dead, and yeah, he's got a lot of status effects on them. So yeah, they don't have bad breaths, they just inflict everything with their basic attack, which makes them a bit more dangerous than other Malboros. I think they can cause sleep, silence, paralysis, mini, and confuse. And yeah, of course, they can inflict all of them all at once, so if you're really unlucky, yeah, you're gonna be hurting here, because this isn't exactly the easiest battle. Thankfully, it all wears off, so there is that. But yeah, Malboro Menaces also have some pretty good stats overall, and I think causing Curse on them is going to help out a lot here. Back to the Arcane Labyrinth. Yeah, you have to go through it multiple times, which kinda sucks, but I think it's a bit better because you only have to go through so many floors at a time. So, yeah, it's got that going for it, and at least it's not, you know, again, Final Fantasy I's optional dungeons where you have to go through the same goddamn dungeon again and again and again. That was annoying. But I believe there's actually, like, some even harder version of Arcane Labyrinth, like the final version, which actually adds some character called Deumion. Deumion, I think that it's pronounced something like that. Basically, they add another super boss, and they have an entire story for him, which is kinda neat. It's kinda similar to a plot point in Final Fantasy VI, so don't really know why they add it here. Basically, to sum it up, I think like everyone ever knows magic, and that sucks because everyone keeps getting more and more powerful magic. So eventually they have to kill off the people with the magic, and only a few people can know magic, because if everyone knows magic, then magic will get even stronger, and then everyone will die. And that's pretty much it. And Deumion, can't pronounce it, Deumion, basically he's the guardian of it, and he's really powerful and all that, yada yada yada, as you'd expect. He's the guy who sends out Frakios. God, why do these guys have to have such hard to pronounce names? But yeah, he's a fairly powerful boss with some good spells, some incredibly high stats. In fact, better stats than the final boss has himself. The reward for it, though, kind of sucks. The thing is, you get some of the ultimate magic that people had created, but it's kind of worthless in actual combat. Now, the first one, I believe, is a white magic spell called, shoot, what is it? It's something like Revive, I think it is. Revive... forget exact... yeah, I think it's Revive, actually, since the other spell's called Life. But yeah, you get a spell called Revive, which isn't the worst. It actually revives and heals everyone in the party, and in the enemy's party. So basically it's just a reset button, which isn't the worst thing. I mean, Final Fantasy V had a similar spell that you could get, you know, in pretty much at the start of the game, more or less. It's a pretty good time magic, so once you unlock Time Mage you can use it, but yeah, it's basically that, except just a different spell in general. But it's... I guess it's not the worst. If you really need a reset button, then it's there for you, though. Then again, if you're doing the Arcane Labyrinth and you can actually complete it, then why would you need a reset button? You should be able to kill everything else A-okay, no problems whatsoever. The other one, though, is definitely useless. It's a spell called Destroy. It kills everyone. Enemy party and your own party, with the exception of the caster, who survives with no MP and 1 HP. It's pretty much just a desperation attack, but again, why would you need it? It's just a resource drain, because unless, well no, even if you're outside, then you'd have to use a tent. I mean, no matter what, you're going to have to spend money that was, or items that were unnecessary had you just fought the battle normally. So really it's kinda useless, because you had to waste ethers, you have to waste tents, it's just not good overall. Oh dear, Chaos Rider. Chaos Rider, kinda powerful, just not one of the worst enemies. I still find the Gold Goblin overall a bit stronger, though that's just me. They can come in groups of 1 to 4, as per usual. Thankfully I only got the 1, because they can cause Confuse, Dispel, Gaze, Drain, Osmos, Slow, Warp, and Stun. And of course they have the Drain HP aspect back, so yeah, these guys are pretty tough. Basically, they absorb everything as well, I believe. So yeah, they're pretty tough. I kinda got lucky in only fighting one of them. They do have some pretty good drops though, I believe. These guys though, they're not really that good. I think they know Curse and Death, which are good spells, but they're not really that effective. They're probably going to end up missing, in all honesty, so really they're not too bad. Taking them down should be easy, especially with Curse. Curse is a very good status effect here, I gotta say. Very, very helpful for Scott, since he's not doing much damage otherwise. So yeah, this room... I don't like this room, but at least I know how to go through it this time. So it'll be a much shorter room, even though we've spent 10-ish minutes dealing mostly with enemies, pretty much. Just that Gold Golem and those Malboros were tough to take down. But of course, we've finally arrived at the 4th floor, so you know what that means. We're going to be going around a bunch of rooms, fighting a bunch of bosses to get some pretty good weapons. Now, one thing I don't like about the Arcane Labyrinth is that it actually gives the main party ultimate weapons. Now, we get ultimate weapons here, and before we get to the boss, but that makes sense that since the 4th party members are supposed to have ultimate weapons, but the main party is supposed to sort of be flexible and that sort of thing. Like, you're supposed to just be able to do whatever you want with them. But no, it's like, hey, these guys have the best weapons, and it's one specific type of weapon, so if you're not using that, well, fuck you. Anyway, yes, this is the first boss. It's a Steel Giant, and it's actually a recolor of a certain enemy that's actually incredibly rare. We could have encountered it in Pandemonium, but I didn't. I think it's got like, well, I think it's like 4% chance. Actually, no, it might be like 1.6% chance, but anyway, yes, Steel Giants are usually pretty tough enemies in the series overall. This guy's not really much of an exception. I mean, he's not the worst Iron or Steel Giant type of enemy, but of course he's got high HP, attack, and defense. He's also weak against lightning, so had I not been doing well against him, and had I not had the Blood Sword, well, he could have been a bit tougher. Also, apparently he steals the Emperor's signature move, Starfall, so I haven't seen him use it on one hand, but on the other hand, I haven't seen him use it, but whatever. So yes, I'm going to give Scott the Excalibur for now, which is pretty nice. It's pretty good that we get the Excalibur here. Now, while we do get the Excalibur here, we don't get the Masamune. That's not available in Soul of Rebirth as far as I know, so while we do get a fairly powerful sword, we don't get the best sword. On the other hand, we do get a better sword than the Excalibur, though, and that, of course, is Scott's ultimate weapon, which we'll be getting in a bit. Werewolves, who cares? These guys, I don't... What do they even do? I don't even remember what these guys do. I think they cause poison with their physical attacks, and that's pretty much it. So, basically, they're exactly like previous wolves. So, who cares? This wolf is dead, the battle is over, let's continue on with our lives. So yes, we got a recolor of a basic enemy because, well, we already fought Borgin, and let's be honest, fighting him a fourth time would be just plain stupid. We don't need to fight him anymore, he's Borgin, who gives a damn. But yeah, Black Dragon, also a fairly powerful enemy. Actually, this is probably one of the only enemies that you can see beforehand in the the main game. Now, the main thing that's tough about these Black Dragons is actually their ability to use Flare 16. He didn't, but he's dead anyway. He does have some pretty good magic defense, and also I got some dragon armor. Very lucky. So yes, that's the Black Dragon. They're somewhat tough enemies, though. Not as tough as Chaos Riders or Gold Golems, but while we didn't see Borgin again, before we get to that, we have a Dark Behemoth to take care of. You should know the drill by this point. They're just really tough, they do a lot of damage, so use Protect and Blink if you're having trouble. Otherwise, just hammer away at them. It's not too tough overall, really. Especially with that Blood Sword. That helps out immensely. While we didn't see Borgin a fourth time in this dungeon, we should expect to see even more recolors here. I don't know why Orochi's in this. What are you even doing here? So, Orochi is a recolor of Tiamat. He absorbs all basic elements as Tiamat did. He utilizes only Poison Cloud, Thunderbolt, and Ice Storm, though he is missing a few elements to attack with. They are all level 16, though, as attacks, so you do have to watch out for that. His stats are better than Tiamat's, though, so you kinda have to watch out for that. So while he doesn't utilize as many elements, he does have more of an advantage than Tiamat did. His magic defense, though, is surprisingly lackluster, but of course, since he absorbs all the basic elements, he can only use Holy Flare and Ultima. Berserk, of course, is important as well as Haste, and, well, Blood Sword. Blood Sword's always important. You took the Blood Sword along, right? You did? Good. You should've, because it's a lot more useful to Rickard than it is to the main party in the main game. I don't know why, but it's also weak to poison as well. Though then again, I guess the game doesn't really care about poison element that much, or poison status rather, because poison doesn't do that much damage overall. It's like 3 to 5 damage per enemy, so I guess I can understand why they wouldn't just, outright block poison, because there's not much of a point. You might as well just give the player that 3 extra damage you're gonna do. Not like it matters anyway. Anyway, Stardust Rod is, of course, Minwu's ultimate weapon, but he's a white mage, so his weapon isn't that amazing. It does give him a bit more of an edge against standard enemies, so he doesn't have to just heal all the time or be useless. So he's got that going for him, but of course all the other characters are much better at being powerhouses. Oh, look at that. Remember how I said mage enemies were pretty tough? I kind of lied a little bit. Kate Sith is actually a little bit tougher because they can cause instant death with their basic attacks. Blaster pretty much does the same thing. Dark Magicians, kind of terrible. They know Fire 16, but who cares about Fire 16? It's not any other spell like, say, Flare or Holy or something threatening. No, they only know one spell that's not even that amazing. Oh well, he's an idiot, let's just leave it at that. Anyway, we actually have a Black Dragon guarding this. I don't know why, I mean, Black Dragon's not really that tough an enemy. We killed one as a standard enemy just a few minutes ago, so why does the game think this is going to be a threat in the slightest? I mean, really, even if the other bosses are at the very least recolors, at least they're a little more interesting and they're not just standard enemies in the actual dungeon itself. Oh well, let's just finish this thing off. Yep, didn't take much time at all with the Blood Sword. See, that's why the Blood Sword's OP. Way too OP, nerf please. Holy Lance is actually one of Rickard's ultimate weapons. He does actually have a second ultimate weapon, which, honestly, I might actually use that for the final boss, because the Blood Sword will sweep the floor with the last boss, because, of course, he's got a lot of HP, and since he has a lot of HP, well, it's just plain effective to use the Blood Sword against him, which is why I don't really want to use it. That just seems a little too cheap for my liking. I mean, I'll cheap out the enemies and the bosses in this dungeon, yeah sure, but the final boss, that's going a little far. Anyway, from here we get the Wild Rose, and we actually have to fight Lucifer. We were able to get the Masamune without a fight, but yeah, we had to fight Lucifer here. I don't know why Lucifer is here and not in the underworld, where, you know, he should be. But then again, Astaroth is specifically one of the Underworld's generals, I believe, so Astaroth makes sense, Lucifer doesn't. What are you doing here in not Hell, or Reverse Hell, or wherever this is? You should be in Hell proper. I mean, really. Lucifer is pretty similar to Astaroth. He resists fire, ice, and lightning. His magic defense isn't all that good, so Scourge, Flare, Holy, and Ultima, all really good. He does actually utilize a Drain attack, as well as the Drain spell. He doubles up on those sort of things, so he can take a lot of your HP back, which does kinda suck. But, yeah, it's not too bad overall. He also has, Fire and Scourge. All of his spells are level 16, which should be expected by this point. Basically, put up barriers, beat the shit out of them. You're good. Anyway, yes, the Wild Rose is actually Scott's ultimate weapon. It's actually a very good sword, better than Excalibur itself, actually. Yeah, look at that attack power. While the Masamune is better, I believe, I'm pretty sure it is anyway, it is the most powerful sword in this entire dungeon, or entire scenario, rather, so I would definitely recommend coming this way. I mean, it's not like it's too far out of the way, and plus, Lucifer's not that hard a boss anyway, so really, even if you don't really want to do too much of this dungeon, I'd give Scott a good sword, because he doesn't get many good swords. Yeah, these guys here aren't really too bad either, though. I don't think Twin Heads actually have anything special. Like, their stats aren't good, they have no unique abilities, they absorb fire, but what's the alternative? Stabbing them. Oh man, that was so difficult. Who even cares? And of course, Catoblipaw can turn you into stone, but I don't have to worry about petrification. My characters are fairly powerful at this point, so I think they will resist a lot of stuff. Hopefully they resist a lot of stuff. It would be nice. It would be nice to not get killed by stuff or turned into stone by stuff. I'd just like to not be inflicted with any statuses. It would be nice. So anyway, that's most of the dungeon. Oh no, Dark Souls. These guys are kind of dumb enemies. Like, as per usual, like most soul enemies, they absorb all elemental magic. But they just cast random magic themselves, and while they do have a pretty good pool of magic, it's not really that good, and also they rely a bit more on physical attacks, and also their stats are pretty terrible. So these guys are going to be fairly easy to kill, especially now that I have a lot more ultimate weapons. Like, everybody but Joseph has their ultimate weapon. So yeah, these guys don't really stand much of a chance. which is probably why they are delaying the battle by just casting terrible magic. Look at that, level 8 magic. That is just... I am insulted by your level 8 magic. How dare you attack me with something so weak? I have never been so insulted in all my life. Ah, well, whatever. You died. Yeah, they don't even give you that much gil, so... yeah, it's not worth it fighting them in the slightest. I mean, I'm not going to run away from them. I mean, they're a waste of time to fight, but that doesn't mean I'm going to run away from them, because that would just be wimpy. Oh, geez, Pyrobolos. Here's a fun fact. Pyrobolos are actually... they're not weak to fire like previous bomb enemies. They are a lot more like, you know, the usual bomb enemies you see in the series. They actually healed. So while they are a bit more standard, it'll probably catch most players by surprise since, you know, most bomb enemies were weak to fire up to this point. Thankfully, it's not like that's going to be the end of you or anything. You should be able to kill them relatively easily. Of course, it also does affect the Bloodbones over there. Bloodbones works pretty much like the previous undead enemies did. Weak to fire and cure attacks. But, unfortunately for them, they don't do much outside of draining HP, so... they're almost downgrades to previous undead enemies, except for the fact that I think their stats are better, but... it doesn't really help them that much. Actually, they are doing a fair amount of damage. And causing Scott to die. Okay, I will admit that was actually some pretty good teamwork right there. I will give credit when credit is due. That wasn't too bad. The mini Satanas and the Bloodbones actually worked well together, which is kind of unusual given most enemies don't really do much together. They don't really support each other very well, they just sort of do their own thing. They're all just loners in a group, really, those random battle enemies. Was I attacking the Bloodbones with Rickard? I just realized that that's not a good idea. I kind of forgot that the Blood Sword does that, but oh well. So yes, the final ultimate weapon. After some healing, because of course it is guarded by none other than Beelzebub's soul. Yeah, it's not just a recolor of Beelzebub, it is actually Beelzebub himself, except he's a ghost now. Though he still keeps that adorable little cape that I can't believe I didn't actually point out last time. Look at that thing, it's just strapped over him like... he's just this gigantic hideous bug thing, but he's got a tiny little cape, it's cute. Anyway, this battle with Beelzebub is a bit different. If you remember before, he actually absorbed fire itself last time, but as you might have noticed, I used fire. He absorbs fire, he's weak to fire, and he actually absorbs lightning, so stick to fire, and of course your other spells like Flare, Holy, Ultima, and all that. He does have a fair number of spells: Flare, Fire, Stun, Dispel, Blaze, Confuse. He died before I could actually finish describing him, thanks to the Blood Sword. And of course, given he has Dispel, be careful about using barriers, because he could easily take them down. Now, we did just get a weapon for Joseph, except it's not technically a weapon. It's actually a item for the hands, which actually, it does increase both his attack power and his defense by quite a bit, so... it's kinda just a better Giant's Glove overall, but hey, it helps, I guess, but yeah. Further proof that you were supposed to keep Joseph as a hand-to-hand fighter, but there are some better axes you can equip, and hopefully I will find it at some point. I really hope so. But yes, of course, we're almost done with this dungeon. We got a Genji helm, which is nice, but yeah, now that we're done getting all those items, it's just pretty much a nice casual walk up to the final area, just like it was in the previous dungeon. And again, while I do like Pandemonium, that is a bit of a downside to this area overall. It's just, you struggle in one section of it, but then the rest is a breeze. It's really not balanced that well. These floors are just so short. But then again, I'm not complaining. Hopefully I don't run into any gold golems, because I'm really not fond of them punching me in the face and killing me. That wasn't fun, but I think that period's over. Basically, we're just gonna pick up some other items. We got some Genji equipment, which is nice. The Genji equipment is actually fairly easy to get, which is kind of surprising given the Genji equipment was what the guarded items in Pandemonium were. And of course, this last floor is very easy. It's just reversed to go to the bottom right side. And with that, we're on the final floor, and we can finally see the mastermind behind all of this. Mother Brain was behind all of this all along! I should have known. Mother Brains are very easy enemies. They work just like any other brain enemies or changer enemies. They use a weak version of Swap, and they have low stats, which can put you at a disadvantage because they have like 500 HP, so if they are successful in swapping your HP, then you will... It's just not a good thing, but thankfully they themselves probably won't kill you. They should probably rely on other enemies since they can't do 500 damage themselves. But regardless, next time we find out who exactly brought all the souls to the afterlife, and what exactly he wants.